Hey y'all, go live. Go on and go live. So, what- Lord, I hear myself in the background. If you can hear me, put a one in the chat. Hmm. Good, 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 good. I was worried there for a minute. Thank you, Just Me. Thank you, Just Me. Hey, Hawkeyes loves nature. Carolina Hurtago, Kathy Helmuth, Tracy E.H., Pam's in a Hindi, True Crime Kate, Murder of Crows, Hey Fancy Nancy, Just Me, Hawkeye's Lovelessly, Kelly, Lou Brown, I should go back up here, Lisa Smith, Dorian Pinion, Lisa Zeck. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I'll come back to you. I'm going to try to pay attention to the chat and talk to y'all. Let's see. Let me go back over here. Okay. So I've really been wanting to get back on here, but I've been kind of stuck in my head or something. And I was like, we've talked about the paste papers many times. Remember these? See, I've wore them out looking at them. And uh, I had told Crusher I was going to read them. And so I started trying to read it. And I kept messing up and thinking, and so I'm going to do it today. But I'm going to do it in a way that's in this. There's this paste memo. I guess I should tell you what it is first instead of going on and on about it and not explaining what it is. So let me get my script, as they say, my notes. So in 1990, there was a committee of the LDS Church that wanted to do a survey. And so the name of the committee that wanted to do the survey is called the Strengthening Church Committee. And you can find it on Wikipedia. But the Strengthening the Church Members is a committee of general authorities of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who monitor publications of antagonists, both external and of members, for criticism of the church and leaders and teachings. If criticism is found, the committee may forward the information to the local leaders, who may bring charges of apostasy, which can result in withdrawal of church membership. So this strengthening the church members committee is really a judicial and it's a committee that is supposed to locate bad people and put them out of the church. It's strengthening. So it's sort of it's named kind of backwards from what you would think that it would be named. And what it's a lot of people in this would say that it's a spy organization too, and it says that they monitor antagonists. That's people who talk about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Strengthening the Church Members Committee has heard of us, even though we are not on the membership roll. So what was happening is there were cases cases like JJ and Tolly that happened throughout the years, and other children who came forward with stories. And so it was documented, and they wanted it documented and researched. And so this committee hired that, I don't think they hired him, that would mean they paid him. I think that they assigned him as part of his job was to meet with all these different individuals who were victims of child abuse. And so uh, this Glenn Pace was not a doctor. He wasn't like a psychologist or a person who knew about, you know, human behavior at all. He was an accountant, they said. And so this committee asked Glen L. Pace, then a member of the bishopric, to research the allegations of satanic ritual abuse and and that's SRA because of the growing and consistent reports from members claiming of being subjected to such abuse by other church members and leaders. The committee needed to assess the validity of these claims, which were increasingly impacting members and raising concerns about the potential deep seated corruption within the local leadership. And Glenn Pace was born in 1940. He's passed away now. He passed away in 2017. He was a general authority, and he was a bishop at this time. And they had him doing this job and being a bishop at the same time. And then he served as a general authority until his death. Okay, so that's who Pace was, and we now know who this committee was of the LDS Church that wanted him to do this thing. So I have I have listened to some of the way that there's a short introduction that's given for the Glen Pace memo that is so good that I can't do it as well. And so I'm going to play a short 3-minute clip of that. So if y'all just hang on a minute and talk amongst yourselves.
And this is the Glen Pace memo and Satanic Ritual Abuse. Some background for those of you that don't know what the Glen Pace memo is. In the early 1990s, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on the Strengthening the Members Committee met, and one of the members of the Presiding Bishopric, Glen Pace, was charged with investigating a growing amount of people coming forward claiming to be victims of satanic ritual abuse. And so this is one of the reports that were submitted to the Strengthening the Members Committee of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So going back, I thought that he said that very, very well. And I wanted to wanted to show you this in comparison to what we're talking about. 1990 is this Glen Pace memo where they wanted him to research about it. And the reason why, because these things had been going on, this Alan Bauer Bassett and David Lee Hamlin and others. We talked about the Laffertys and all these other groups that had weird rituals that we're not sure about. And so it was in 1990 that this memo came out that I'm going to read. But still, in 2019, the day bail cases happened. David Lee Hamlin was brought back to court. Alan Brower Bassett was finally charged, even though he had been up to this since 1978. So keep these little things in mind while I read. Now, when I read this, I'm going to put up a thing to go across the bottom. Hang on, y'all. My phone is banging. It might be somebody important. Could be. Could be Chris. Okay. Bloomflower Barn, if you'll hang on a minute, I'll pull you back in. I'll figure out how to. I really don't even know how to untime it, but I'll check to see what I can do about it. But let's see. Maybe I should try to do that before I. Let's see, y'all, if I can do that even. Let's see. Did you time her out for a long time, Nancy, or just a short time? Sometimes we accidentally do these things. All you can do is to click her to see if the options tell her how long she. I don't know. Well, I don't see her comment for me to push any buttons to let her back in. So I hope you only had her tagged out for a minute because I've got to read this. And I would love to put this off and not read this thing. Uh, well, hang on. Let's see. No, I'm not going to do it on there. Heavenly Days, which accounts. I should have tried on my phone, but I bet as bad as I am on the computer, I'm worse on the phone. Okay, we're just going to go on and hit the road with both feet. Let me get my banner going. And this banner is because this is not for children, it's for adults. There's some bad things in here, but we've heard way worse things. But if I see that we're coming, let's see. There you go. What I'm going to read is not as bad as what happened to our kids. Not my kids. They're not, I should have not said that. What happened to JJ and Tyler? We just all think that we've adopted them, but we didn't. We're just trying to get justice, and my tongue gets ahead of my brain. And so, as we've said times before, we're not talking about all of anybody. We're not talking about all LDS people, not all Catholic people, not all of any kind of people. These are some bad people who have corrupted organizations. How deep it goes, we're not exactly sure, but it's almost in every organization. So truly, we're not picking on you. That's just what happened. That's just where we've been going. So I'm going to check one more time in the comments, and let's see. Would you put a one in the comments if my sound is good before I start reading this? Yes, this is me reading and not Krisha. I told Krisha I would do this for her, and I expect that this will help both of us to move to some more steps with the same thing, because we started on this and we got kind of sidetracked. This was one of the projects that she had with Joe, and it's very important that we keep moving with it. So, what I'm reading to you today is called the PACE Memo. At the very top, it says, "Do not reproduce." Memorandum. Date, July 19th, 1990. To strengthening the church members committee from Bishop Glen L. Pace. Subject, ritual child abuse. Pursuant to the committee's request, I am writing this memorandum to pass along what I have learned about ritualistic child abuse. Hopefully, it will be of some value to you as you continue to monitor the problem. You have already received the LDS Social Services Report on Satanism dated May 24th, 1989, and I'm researching that. And it says a report from Brent Ward and a memorandum from myself dated October 20th, 1989, in response to Brother Ward's report. Therefore, I will limit the writings to information not contained in those papers. I have met with 60 victims. That number could have been twice or three times as many if I didn't discipline myself to only one meeting per week. I have not wanted my involvement with this issue to become a handicap in fulfilling my assignment responsibilities. On the other hand, I felt someone needed to pay the price to obtain the intellectual and spiritual convictions as to the seriousness of this problem within the church. Of the 60 victims with whom I have met, 53 are female and 7 male. 8 are children. The abuse occurred in the following places: Utah, 37; Idaho, 3; California, 4; Mexico, 2; and other places, 14. 53 victims are currently living in the state of Utah. All 60 individuals are members of the church. 45 victims allege witnessing or participating in human, and you can guess what the next word was. The majority were abused by their relatives and often their parents. All have developed psychological problems, and most of them diagnosed with having multiple personality disorder or some other form of dissociative disorder. Ritualistic child abuse is the most hideous of all child abuse. The basic objective is premeditated to systematically and methodically torture and terrorize children until they are forced to disassociate. The torture is not a consequence of the loss of temper, but the execution of a well planned, well thought out rituals, often performed by close relatives. The only escape for the children is to disassociate. They will develop a new personality to enable them to endure various forms of abuse. When the episode is over, the core personality is again in control and the individual is not conscious of what happened. Disassociation serves the purpose of the occult as well, because children have no day to day memory of these atrocities. They go through adolescence and early childhood with no active memory of what was taking place. Oftentimes, they continue in the ritual's involvement. Many individuals with whom I have spoken have served missions. It has not been until later that they begin to remember. One individual has memories of participating in rituals while serving as a full time missionary. The victims lead relatively normal lives, but the memories are locked up in a compartment of their minds and surface at various ways. They don't know how to cope with these emotions because they can't find the source. As they become adults and move into another environment, something triggers the memories and consequently flashbacks or nightmares occur. One day they will have been living a normal life, and the next day they will be in the mental hospital in a fetal position. The memories of their early childhood are recalled in so much detail that they once again feel the pain and are caused to dissociate like they did in the first place. There are two reasons why adults can't remember with such detail events that happened in their past. First, the terror they experienced was so stark, it was so indelibly placed in their mind. And second, the memory was compartmentalized into a certain portion of the mind and was not subject to the dilution of experiences of the ensuing years. When it's when it's tapped, it is fresh as if it happened yesterday. Let's stop and take a drink. The memories seem to come in layers. For example, the first memory may be incest. Then they may remember robes and candles and next realize that their father and mother were both present when they were being abused. Another layer will be a memory of seeing other people hurt or deleted. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but that's not good. Another layer of realizing that they participated in the sacrifices. In other words, they witnessed it, but it was key for them to witness because then they had something to hold over their head. They could extort them, force them to stay in the group because they participated in the atrocities, even though they probably didn't remember it. Now I got carried away trying to not scare anybody. One of the most painful memories may be that they had to do that to their own baby. With each layer of memories comes another set of problems with which they must deal. Some have said that the witnesses to these type of treatments cannot be trusted because of the victim's unstable condition and because practically all of them have some kind of dissociative disorder. In fact, the stories are so bizarre as to raise serious credibility questions. The irony is that one of the objectives of the occult is to create multiple personalities within the children in order to keep the secrets. They live in a society without society having any idea that something is wrong, since the children and teenagers don't even realize that they're in another life. Turn the page. Occurring in darkness and in secret. However, when 60 witnesses testify to the same type of torture and murder, it has become impossible personally for me not to believe them. I mentioned this multiple personalities because the spiritual healing, which must take place in the lives of these victims, cannot happen without their priesthood leader understanding something about it. The spiritual indoctrination, which takes place during the physical abuse, is one of the most difficult things to overcome because the person who's supposed to be the spiritual leader is now doing the bad thing. Now, that's not in here. That was me speaking. In addition to experiencing stark terror and pain, the children are also instructed in satanic doctrine. Everything is completely reversed. White is black, black is white, good is bad, bad is good. Satan is going to rule during the millennium. Children are put in a situation where they believe they're going to die, such as being buried alive or being placed in a plastic bag and immersed in water. Think about JJ. Prior to doing so, the abuser tells a 7-year-old girl, having been told she is going to die, praying to Jesus to save her. Nothing happens, and then a representative of Satan he uses to experience to convince the little girl who really cares about the only one who really cares about her is Satan. She is Satan's child, and she might as well become loyal to him. What in the heck? So that's what the ritual is about. Is to you're scared you're gonna die. You pray to Jesus. Instead of Jesus comes, it's a dang bad person. Just before or shortly after their baptism into the church, children are baptized by blood into the Satanic order, which is meant to cancel out their baptism in the church. They will be asked if they understand or have ever felt the Holy Ghost. When things they have participated in will be told that they have become a son or daughter of perdition and that therefore have no chance of being saved or loved by our Father in heaven or Jesus. So this is what they're telling the little kid. All of this indoctrination takes place with whichever personality has immersed to endure the physical and mental and spiritual pain. Consequently, there develops within each of these individuals the makings of what I call a civil war. As the memories begin to surface, there are personalities who feel they are giving themselves to Satan, and there's no hope for forgiveness. The, the core person is an active member of the church, often with a temple recommend. As integration takes place, the civil war begins. Sometimes it's in an interview. Personalities of the dark side have come out. They are petrified or perhaps full of hate for me and what I represent. Eventually, those personalities need to be dealt with spiritually or psychologically. Now, that's a little scary. Next page. Most victims are suicidal. They have been brainwashed with drugs, hypnosis, and others and become suicidal as soon as they start to tell the secrets. They have been threatened all their lives that if they don't do what they're told, their brother or sister will die, their parents will die, their house will get burned, they themselves will be killed. They have every reason to believe it since they have seen other people killed. They believe that they might as well kill themselves instead of wait for the occult to do it. So some personalities feel it is the right thing to do. Good heavens. The purpose of this detail is to stress the complexity of the psychological and spiritual therapy for these individuals. Our priesthood leaders, when faced with such cases, are understandably at a loss of how to respond. Orthodox counsel is completely ineffective. For example, some victims have been told this all happened in their past and they should put it behind them and get on with their lives. And this is just not possible. Part of the spiritual therapy necessary is for the priesthood leaders to assist with the conversion process of the personality who have been indoctrinated in Satanism. Confused. Victims must integrate their personalities to that they function as a whole person and be able to deal with their problems and then get on with their lives. Often, some parts will begin to act out, perhaps promiscuously, and good intentioned priesthood leaders, following the general handbook of instruction, will disfellowship or excommunicate an individual. All of this is reinforced that the satanic indoctrination of victims that they are no good. I'm sorry to say that many of the victims have had their first flashbacks while attending the temple for the first time. The occult, along with the Wasatch Front, uses the doctrine of the church to their advantage. For example, the verbiage and gestures that are used in the ritualistic ceremony is the very verbiage and gestures that are used in the ritualistic ceremonies that are very debased and often bloody. When the victim goes to the temple and hears the exact same words, horrible memories were triggered. We have recently been in a temple ceremony compared to what is happening in the occult and the Wasatch Front. There are very minor infractions. The recommend holders are also living dual lives. Many are temple recommend holders and legally. This leads to another reason why the church needs to consider the seriousness of these problems. In effect, the church is being used. I go out of my way not to let the victims give me the names of the perpetrators. I have told them that my responsibility is to help with the spiritual healing and that the names of the perpetrators should be given to therapists and law enforcement. Yes, they should be given to law enforcement officers. However, they have told me that the positions of the church members who are perpetrators, among others, there are young women's leaders, young men leaders, bishops, a patriarch, a stake president, a temple worker, a member of the tabernacle choir. These accusations are not coming from individuals who think they are recognize someone, but from those who have been abused by the people they know. In many cases, their own family members. In other words, all of these victims were in the church and they were complaining and asking for help. Whatever the form of abuse, our main concern is for the victims. But there are legal ramifications. We are disturbed to receive reports that a scoutmaster has abused the boys in his troop. It is not difficult to imagine what would happen if we learned that it's a bishop or a stake president has participated in the abominations of ritual child abuse. Not only do not only do some of the perpetrators represent a cross section of the Mormon culture, but sometimes the abuse has taken place in our own meeting houses. I don't pretend to know how prevalent the problem is. All I know is that I have met with 60 victims. Assuming each one comes from a coven of 13, we're talking about an involvement of 800 or so right here in the Wasatch Front. Obviously, have only seen those coming forth to get help. There are in their 20s and 30s for the most part. I can only assume that it is expanding geometrically, and I'm horrified the numbers represent by the generation who are now children and teenagers. Another reason for concern is that there are several doctrinal issues that we need to be resolved. The church and society in general are very skeptical as to whether the occult and its activities do exist. There's no first presidency statement relative to some of the doctrinal issues. and say that they have participated in these rituals, and which may include human something else. That's a word I'm not going to say, but at this point I can, you know what I'm talking about. Should they have a temple recommend? Will they ever be forgiven? There are questions regarding free agency and from infancy accountable for those who take place in a dissociative state, even though those acts were committed after questioning. And how done the best I can. However, I don't have the mantle to make these doctrinal or policy decisions. I have relied on the mantle of the bishop regarding discernment and being a common judge. The few priesthood leaders who have had to face these issues are crying out for help because they don't know what to give their own opinions on, yet there's no place to go to get an answer. A bishop will go to the stake president who says he doesn't believe it is happening and the member is just crazy. The stake president might go to the area presidency who will react in a similar way. Most people are afraid to surface it and the first presidency for fear of getting the same reaction and don't want to appear crazy themselves for asking the questions. Okay, part of what takes so long to read this thing is part of it is scriptures, and it goes on and on and on. And so I'm going to try to read as little of the Book of Mormon scriptures as I can. I'm just going to leave that out because the reason why Brother Glenn Pace put this in here is because he wanted the people hired to them, he wanted to impress them that the scripture was backing up what he was saying, that these things would be happening. And I'll put a link in the description where you can go to listen to the whole rest of it with the scripture in. So here I go. I hope you will excuse me if I am being presumptuous, but I'm concluding this paper with scriptures. I feel support my beliefs that these activities are real and cannot be ignored. And he starts out by saying, these things have been in the writings that go back to Cain and Abel. Now he goes on and on about the experiences of Cain and Abel, and he talks about Alma and some other things, and I really don't understand it, and I don't think you would either, so I'm not even going to read it. I'm going to go on over here to the part that's not scripture. It gets back to his letter because the scripture's not going to impress you anyway. He does say, he says, in the light of these scriptures, it's naive for us to think that these things would not exist in our generation. We know this is the last dispensation and the dispensation of the fullness of the times. Surely Satan would not pass on this important dispensation. He says, we have allegations to indicate that this is in the true people. And we have high places today in both the church and the government who are leading this dual life. The secret combinations were mentioned all through the Book of the Mormon. So he's talking about people that are high up in the Mormon church and people that are high up in the government are taking part of these rituals. Okay, let's see. Okay, he says, many of us have read all of this all of our lives, and we click our tongues and how awful it is, and that how awful it would be to live in such a time. These victims with whom I have spoken testify to these things that are going on all among us today. Now, this is 1990, still going on among us today. So, and the rest of it is some scripture. So that was way faster when I left out Hellemans and all that. So let me go back to this. I lost y'all completely. I may have. There you are. I don't. Let's see. I'm back here, y'all. I'm just trying to figure out what I've done with everything. I want to take this off. Ah, make it small. Yes. Okay. And I think I'll put up this. So we're going back to this. So it was in 1990 that this memo was written, and not a dang thing was done about it. It doesn't look like. I mean, and this guy provided a lot of detail. And so I wanted to show y'all there's a website. Let's see. Hmm. Wait a minute. I'm going to show y'all this website. Okay, this is Floodlit. Dang, I must have the overlay up here. I got too many things going on. There it is. This website is called floodlit.org, I think. I'll put that in the tab. And this floodlit.org is a website that keeps up with child abuse reports. And where is it now? Here it is. Okay. And there's a place to report abuse. There's databases. There's a map. Well, I don't know what I did with it. So one thing that struck me during this whole thing, because I can't get that thing to work right now, but if you go to this Floodlit website, okay, here it is going to it after I got off of it here. You can see on this map the United States about where these sex offenders who are Latter-day Saints are. And it's a awful lot of them in Arizona. If I was you, I'd be worried. If I was, you need to be careful over, oh, what am I talking about? These people in Las Vegas, 144 in Ogden, 129 in Provo. I don't really understand how this map works, but also it has um, Crime City, Provo. And it shows different ones. You can look it up and do your own research if you're wondering about somebody and view the report and everything. That's what it was. Is this fella I had on my list. Let's see if this was the one that I had on my list, and it says that Alan Bassett was a Mormon church member and retired air traffic controller of Fruit Heights, Davis County, Utah in 1978. Bassett was an assistant ward clerk in Kayville's 14th ward. He, in 1984, he was a Fruit Heights 4th Ward scout leader. Around that time, Bassett lived in the LDS ward, and at least one of the Mormon apostles, Boyd Packer's children, according to a person who knew Bassett and asked to remain anonymous. They were hiding each other, y'all. I don't know what does he look like. What you would think. The one thing that struck me also, you remember David Lee Hamlin. Let me get this down. Put this back up here. David Lee Hamlin, that Krisha has read us the reports about and everything about him and his wife and how they abused their girls. And him and his wife both are not in jail and have managed to get out of it. Well, part of the reason he was able to get out of it was because of the Attorney General. Y'all remember that Attorney General, the one with the buffaloes? It was trading children for buffaloes. Let me see if I can find this report. Let's see.
The allegations against David Levitt and his wife. And yes, it's very convenient for David Levitt to lean into the fact that he prosecuted this guy and Nicholas Rossi was just getting back at him for that. And then, like I said, Levitt accuses the police of conspiring with an alleged criminal for political gain. And I'm going to play another clip for you guys later. That was a huge red flag for me when David Levitt actually gave an interview on News Nation about Rossi. And after hearing this press conference, guys, it will all make sense. And then just for fun, as a side note, you should count how many times David Levitt refers to the accuser, who we know as the eldest Hamlin sister, as, quote, tragically mentally ill. I swear he says this like 10 times. It is so insulting. And I just want to remind you that after this, 97 people were interviewed by an investigator and corroborated everything that the Hamlin sisters said. And David Levitt, in this press conference, he contradicts himself a lot. And the reporters at the end, I mean, that is my favorite part of this whole press conference. It's when they just hammer him with questions and they call him out, and it is so good. This presser is about 23 minutes. I actually had it on 1.5 speed, but I promise you it is worth it. You have to listen to the whole thing and you'll hear certain things that I have referenced in the episode.
I hadn't really planned on hearing this first little part, but here we go. So I feel like I do need um to speak for educational purposes here. So here we go.
Episode
Since
earlier.
the beginning of my term, I have tried to do everything possible to rebuild the trust that law enforcement, prosecutors, and police have lost with the public. Our society demands that we be able to trust our public officials. I want to talk to you about two separate cases. The first case involves a man by the name of Nicholas Rossi. Nicholas Rossi allegedly raped a woman in Orem, Utah in 2008. That case was reported to law enforcement. It went uninvestigated largely. Her rape exam, the victim's rape exam, went untested for a dozen years until shortly around the time I took office, we ensured that it was tested. That rape kit produced evidence that a convicted sex offender in Ohio, Nicholas Rossi, was the suspect. We engaged in a lengthy investigation involving the State Bureau of Investigation, the United States Department of Justice, Scottish authorities, for reasons that I'll disclose, which you may already know, but I'll disclose in a moment, that revealed that Nicholas Rossi was also going by the name of Arthur Knight, that he'd faked his own death, relocated to Scotland, and we located him in a hospital bed in Scotland suffering from COVID. He's now awaiting extradition on charges which I levied against him for the 2008 rape of the Utah County resident. Nicholas Rossi's MO, his mode of operation, has been to take on people who accuse him or who threaten him or who in any way stand in his way with vile crimes, with blackmail, with extortion. And there's a lengthy history and pattern of Nicholas Rossi doing that. Now he's engaged in that process against me and my wife, making all sorts of allegations that are completely groundless in an effort to shift the attention from his alleged crimes in Utah to something that's a complete farce. That's the first case. The second case involved a local therapist and centered around an allegation made by one tragically mentally ill woman who was
So this is the one that Crush has told us so much about. He is talking about David Levitt, and he is calling the witness mentally ill, just like Bishop Pace said that people would do. That they would talk, people would think they were crazy and wouldn't listen to their story.
a therapist's daughter. She accused him and 15 or 20 other members of the community from being involved in horrific crimes. That investigation, that allegation by that tragically mentally ill woman was so outlandish and so ludicrous that our own fine special victims task force that investigates these kinds of crimes refused to even interview any of the 15 or 20 people who were alleged to have committed these crimes. The case resulted in criminal charges against one individual, the tragically mentally ill woman's father. And my predecessor, Jeff Buman, ultimately dismissed that case against the therapist because the evidence was so outlandish and so unbelievable. That therapist had his record expunged recently, his arrest expunged recently, and should be out of the public record.
So he's saying here that the accusations were so wild and so crazy that they didn't even try to prosecute him. I'm so tired of these people not believing victims. I just really am.
Because law enforcement is about trust. It's about being able to say that when the government makes an allegation that there's substance behind it that we can believe in. And if there's not, then we have a process whereby people can have their names restored, which is the process through which this therapist went. Yesterday, I was provided a copy of an alleged witness statement of that tragically mentally ill woman. And for the first time in reportedly 15 or 20 years since the report was given, I learned that my wife and I were part of those allegations, alleging that we were guilty of cannibalizing young children and murdering young children. This morning at 3:30 approximately in the morning, Nicholas Rossi, posing as Arthur Knight, posted to the internet allegations that I am a suspect along with my wife in this crime. It follows Nicholas Rossi's mode of operating, and it does nothing but demean the integrity of me, my wife, and 15 or 20 other members of this community who had absolutely nothing to do with a discredited case from 15 years ago. What's problematic for me, and
A discredited case from 15 years ago. Oh, nobody should discredit it. What does that mean? I want to know what that means.
troubling to me, is that Nicholas Rossi seems to corroborate Fox 13 News assertions that high-profile individuals are involved, and he names me and my wife. And Nicholas Rossi, again, lists Sergeant Spencer Cannon of the Utah County Sheriff's Office as the source for confirming that I indeed am a suspect in crimes that involve cannibalism and murder of small children. That this all occurs less than 1 week before ballots drop in an election in which I am participating causes me tremendous concern over the credibility and the actions and the connections between a convicted sex offender, Nicholas Rossi.
So he's saying that they're bringing this out because he's going to run for office again. I'm just saying, though, if you knew this about him, when he runs for office, it'd be a good time to bring it up if you hadn't said it before. But no, these things should be brought out. Discredited my foot, allegedly.
And the Utah County Sheriff's Office. And I am calling upon Sheriff Mike Smith to open his office to an outside investigation where outside independent investigators.
He said he wanted that sheriff to open his office up, and he said the sheriff's name was Mike Smith, and he wanted him to open. Y'all remember that name, Mike Smith? He wanted him to start an investigation. And remember him, Mike Smith.
Are able to investigate and confirm or deny that documents from a debunked investigation of more than a decade ago were or were not used for political purposes in a Utah County attorney's race. And I call upon Mike Smith to suspend Sergeant Spencer Cannon pending that investigation to determine whether the Utah County Attorney's Office that dismissed charges by my predecessor 12 years ago, whether those charges were dismissed by my predecessor because the allegations were so untenable and unbelievable, and whether the Utah County Sheriff's Office is providing those kinds of documents to political opponents to be used for political purposes. I would call upon Mike Smith, Sheriff Mike Smith, to shed a little more light on his investigation that he announced yesterday. Because the tie that he seeks to make with Nicholas Rossi, a convicted sex offender awaiting extradition on rape charges in Utah, are undeniable. And I challenge Sheriff Smith not only to open his office for an investigation, not only to suspend Spencer Cannon pending that investigation, but to resign himself if it can be demonstrated that his office is being used for such illicit political purposes. That we would stoop in this society to something as disgusting as the 151-page pack of lies that was given to me from the news media. Disheartens me, angers me. We deserve more.
So I'm going to remove him. Y'all, I'm here. I'm going to be moving a few things around. We'll see. Oh, I don't know whether I've got an overlay or an underlay or a background or what to show. Oh, well, Tweedledee. I'm just going to put something behind me. It's not weird. That may make you sick. That was probably not good. Okay, never mind. We won't do that. So I guess I have to be bigger. So the thing I wanted you to know is I wanted you to also see where this happened. This David Levitt, this Utah County, all this junk. Because, let's see, no, that is not what I want. Nope. Hang on, folks. Well, okay, I'll just. Utah County, Utah. Let's see. Okay, I wanted y'all to look at this map. This is Utah, and I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna make it smaller where you can see the whole kit and caboodle. See, here's the whole state of Utah. But I want to show you where Utah County, Utah. There it is. That's it. Okay. The reason I wanted to show you this is because I'm not sure. I think that it was Lauren Mathias said that the craziest place uh, in Utah was Utah County. And we've seen all the stuff, like if you look at it, this is where Provo is. This is where a lot of the people who have been involved in these things have come from. Spanish Fork. So what got me thinking about Utah County, Utah, is that this is where these things happen with David Levitt, this guy that we've been looking at, he's the attorney there. Chad and them were moved from, I think it was Springville to where they live now, up in Idaho, where he doesn't live there in Idaho now. He lives in the jail. But the point I'm making is they're real busy around this part of Utah. And also, let's see, university. Is this it? University. Well, that wasn't where I needed to go. It was in Orem, Utah, I believe. And you may remember something happened there. Hang on a minute, I'm going to check on something. Okay. So where I want to show you. The reason why I wanted to show you this is because this is where Charlie Kirk was also killed, in this same little area. And so the law enforcement and attorney general and all the people that we already know about are the people who are going to be in charge of that too. And so it kind of threw me for a loop, because I was listening to something about Charlie Kirk and I saw, let's see if I can find that. I have too many tabs open. I had to do this to close all these tabs. Let's see if I've got a link for it. My point in showing you all this is that the same law enforcement that was in charge of these pedophiles is also in charge of taking care of that murder. And it seems like that's a little unsettling to have that happen. But what I was going to say is this sheriff, Mike Smith, that maybe I can find it. Let's see. That sheriff, Mike Smith, was the sheriff when all this stuff was going on with Levitt too, because I saw, well, I was watching something, and they were saying, unbelievably, there's the sheriff, Charlie Kirk press conference. So I'm not going to make you listen. I don't even have the sound on for this because I'm going to see if I can scroll through and not make y'all people sick. I'm going to show you the sheriff. Here he is.
As you know, it's been a vast, complicated, and a very, very fast-paced investigation. You're looking at people standing up here who are running on, if they got an hour's sleep in the last couple of days, they're probably lucky. It has been very taxing. This is so impressive, speaking on behalf of the local law enforcement, to see the cooperation that we've seen in this type of case. Across the state, sheriffs, chiefs, our state partners have stepped up and have come to the call on anything that we needed. Our county chiefs have been phenomenal.
I'm not going to make y'all watch a bunch of it, but it was just shocking to me that the same people are involved in Charlie Kirk's murder investigation, and they're Mormons. They're all Mormons. All these people are Mormons. And I know they can't help it happen in Utah. But also a bunch of people who work for Charlie Kirk are also Mormons. So that's a rabbit hole I want to go down with you, not on a political limb. This is not political. I should have said that to start with. This is not political, and this is not about a religion. It's about children who've been abused ritually for years and years and years. And when they do finally tell their story, nobody's listening. And it's a terrible thing. And I won't keep y'all all night here, but I expect that Kershaw will be doing us another video. I've got some more recent people who are going through some similar experiences, and I want to feature them right away. And so I thank you all for being here. Let me say this before I go. If there's anybody who wants to come up and talk, you can, or you don't have to. Krisha, if you're out there, I don't know if you're out there or not, but if you want to come up, come into the studio, or I'll throw you a thing. But if not, I'm going to go on and we'll do some more videos because it ain't over to the fat lady thing. So you never know how long it'll be before I come back and start talking more. That's right, a bloom flower bar. Most Mormons do not have a clue as to what I'm even talking about. And not everybody has the same experience. And you be so thankful if you've never had an experience like this or known anybody that's had an experience like this. It happens that we do. We do know somebody who had an experience like that. And the somebody we know is Kresha. So I wanted to say I'm wishing good health to Kresha and family. And don't give up on me. I'm going to be doing another video soon if I can find my way out.